I see.
So this way,
Okay, but for today, can he just needs to push it twice?
Well,
just once.
And wait.
And wait for
okay. Well, it's not that different
Very
from,
much like,
It's like
Yeah.
our chambers.
Yeah, exactly. The chamber, except their switching system's a little more high tech. Anyway,
Is there any talk for new ones, Scott?
I work over the theater unit, so they.
Okay.
Just wait, and then you can start.
Good morning, everyone. It's been 10. If you can have your seat, please, so we can begin our meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today in our first meeting in the new term. Normally, the meeting takes place on Thursday, the first Thursday of each month. But today, Friday, and I believe because of the budget and the timeline, we changed it quite a bit, and we'll be back to normal in the next month, which is March 7, our next meeting, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. at this hall on Thursday. So before I begin, I'd like to really thank my colleague, Scott Moffett, the former chair of the Agriculture Committee. He's our chair at the Environmental Committee, and looking forward to continue working with him at the Iraq Environment Committee and also FETCO, and I know how many other committees we sit together, but nevertheless, I want to thank him on behalf of all of us for your leadership and kept us moving forward in the last term. This term, we have some exciting, if as Steve Willis would call it, is exciting news, is beyond 2036. We have the OP review, we have the Master Transportation Plan, and all these require some commitment from the committee members and from all of us, and we like to have our community engaged as much as possible. So as of February 28th, I believe, Steve, the paper will be out, 28th, the first white paper on the official plan review, and as a local councilor or as a committee, we like to go to our community and hear directly from our resident. That will be one of the biggest review we're going to see in our time or in our term of this term. So with that, I'd like to begin. So we call it the Declaration of Interest. Confirmation of minute, the minute 40 minutes of November 19, 2018, the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee. So on, okay, thank you. So I would like to read a statement. It's going to be at the Agricultural Affairs Committee. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendment listed as items 7 to 10 on today's agenda. For the items just mentioned, only those who make oral submission today or written submission before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the local planning appeal tribunal. It's the new tribunal versus the OMB now on. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the local planning appeal tribunal if council does not adopt an amendment within 150 days of receipt of the application for zoning and 210 days for the official plan amendment. A comment sheet is available at the door for anyone wishing to submit written comment on this amendment. And we'll go to we're going to go through consent agenda and some of the items we might hold, but just so we can relieve some staff and some of the residents who don't need to stay for the whole meeting. So item number 1 is the site plan control process and fees review. This item went to planning committee and move on a consent. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues have concern about this item, item 1. No, we can carry? Oh, sorry. Okay, so that's why we need Mark to my right to remind me. On item number 1, we have Mr. Adam Thompson, I believe, from Navotech, in agreement with the amendment. Mr. Thompson, where are you? That's not, no, that's not. So, okay. So on item number 1, so we carry, thank you. Item number 2, we have a short presentation from our staff on 2019 operating and capital budget. Item number 3, the Agricultural Affairs Committee term of reference. Okay, thank you. Item number 4 is appointment to the Moore's Landing Queon Port Authority. Okay, thank you. Item number 5 is appointment to the Rural Panel of Committee of Adjustment. Just notice, I believe Panel 3 is, we can adopt it and move forward, but this item will not go to Council till March 6th, because Panel 2 and 3, 1 and 2 is still in progress, working on. Okay, so on this item number 5, can we carry item? Carry. Thank you. Item number 6 is a Rural Business Improvement Area Board of Management appointment for the term of Council 2018-2022. Okay, so that includes the Carp Village BIA, Carp Road Corridor BIA, and Manatic BIA. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure if I can turn it up, but I can get closer to it. I can almost hug it. Okay. So on item number 6, we deal with the BIAs in our community in a rural area. That the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve appointment to the following business improvement area, and I named them Carp Village BIA, Carp Road Corridor BIA, and Manatic BIA. On item 6. Okay, thank you. Item number 7 is a zoning bylaw amendment, 1,500 Thomas Argue Road. I believe we have a speaker in support of that. No, first of all, we have a technical amendment. I'll turn it to the Vice Chair to read it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee replace number 2 in the report with the following: amend section 240, rural exceptions, exception 358R, with the provisions similar in effect to the following. In column 5, delete the following text: maximum lot coverage 30%. In column 5, add the following text: maximum lot coverage 60%. And be it further resolved that pursuant to the Planning Act, subsection 3417, no further notice be given.
On item number 7, we have a speaker in support of that, and I apologize. That's Mr. Adam Thompson. Mr. Thompson, you're here, and you don't have to speak if we carry this item as amended. Okay. On item number 7 as amended, we'll carry the technical amendment, and then we'll carry the item as amended. Okay. Thank you. Item number 8, zoning bylaw amendment, 2368 Church Street in Rio Goba. On item 8, we have a speaker.
Steve Went.
So we have a speaker, Steve Went. Steve, are you here? And I believe you don't have to speak if we carry this item. You're in agreement? Okay, on the item? Okay. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Went. So item 8 carry. Item number 9 is a zoning bylaw amendment, 2800 Moody Drive. We're going to hold this item. We have a speaker in opposition and speaker for. So we'll hold item number 9. Item number 10 is the City of Ottawa Economic Development and Long-Range Planning. Item 10 is the City of Ottawa zoning bylaw 2008-250 Ombudsman Amendment Q1 2019. And the item we have a motion to amend the item 10. I'm going to ask the Vice Chair to recognize me so I can read this amendment, since I I dealt with the background information of this item. So, Mr. Vice Chair, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And folks, this item number 1, it deals the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 as shown in document 1 and detailed in document 3 and 4. Item 2, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation detail section of this report to be included as a part of brief explanation in a summary of written and oral public submission to be prepared by the city clerk and solicitor's office and submitted to council in their report titled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submission for item subject to Bill 73 explanation requirement at the City Council meeting of February 27, 2019, subject to submission received between the publication of this report and the item and the time of council decision. So staff have been working on this, and I want to thank the staff on this amendment. But there's a motion and I won't read the whole motion, but it's been prepared by staff and legal in support of this motion. And where's the technical issue relating to configuration of a farm parcel will prevent the proposed use from complying with the provision relating to a lot area for on-farm diversified use limit to a place of assembly. Therefore, be it resolved that council approve an amendment to document 1, location maps, to add the map included as attachment 1 to this motion, and be it further resolved that document 3, zoning detail for review by Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, be amended to add the following provision on page 28 in this item detailed with on-farm diversified use. Rezone the property municipally known as 4397 Carp Road from AG2 to AG2 as shown in document 1. Amend section 240 rural exceptions by adding a new exceptions with a provision similar in intent to the following in column 2, applicable zoning at the next AG2, and the column 5, provision added to tax. The maximum size of an farm diversified use limited to a place of assembly as 0.54 hectare. The calculation of the area of the on-farm diversified use limit to a place of assembly includes the area of all building and land used for the on-farm diversified use limited to a place of assembly. The maximum area of the building or portion of building used for on-farm use limited to a place of assembly as 480 square meter. The maximum area used for all on-farm diversified use on the lot as 0.54 hectare. The provision in section 79(1) and E do not apply, and be it further resolved that pursuant to the Planning Act subsection 3417, no further notice be given. So first of all, I'd like to thank the staff and Carol Reddy and her team and Dave Weiss for working with the resident and her consultant and work on this solution. One area I spoke with my resident, happened to be, and making sure we comply with the city bylaw on fireworks, because having those assembly in a rural area, we want to make sure there'll be no use of fireworks without a permit from the fire chief and bylaw, mainly to doesn't have an impact on the livestock or on a farmer's field during the summer drought. So I don't need to add it here. I spoke with staff, legal, they're satisfied. There's a bylaw with the city of Ottawa will cover that item if they use the fireworks. And I hope my colleague will support this item. This will open some opportunity for a small business in the rural area. And I want to say thank you to Steve Willis, because we started that in the last year in September, I believe, but we had to wait till now till we have a new committee and staff had the time to make some changes. We do have a speaker in favor of this item, Mr. Murray Chown, Nevotac for Sarah phone, which is the resident. If my colleague's okay with this item and we can carry it, I don't think Mr. Chan would need to speak. Am I correct, sir? Okay, so on the motion first? And on the item, is carried as amended? Okay, thank you very much to our staff, again, for working on this item. We'll go back to item number... So we go to item 2, the draft operating and capital budget. I do believe staff have a presentation for us. Technical. Do you think we should go to your item?
You guys want to go to item 7 first?
We'll go to item 7, so we'll wait for the technical. You can stay where you are, but we'll deal with item 7 till you get your technology working. So we're going to deal with item number 7 first, and then we'll come back to the budget presentation. No, it's not item 7, item 9, actually.
sorry, item
9.
9, yeah,
Item 9. Item 9 is the zoning bylaw amendment to 2800 Moody Drive. And we do have two speakers. So we have Mr. Jackson in agreement, and we have opposed, and Mr. Thompson from Novotech Engineering. So I'm going to call Mr. Jackson to come into the public delegation. Good morning, sir.
Is it on?
This is on now, and first of all, thank you, Mr. Jackson, for being here, and you do have 5 minutes to address the committee. Go ahead, sir.
Just regards to this property on Moody Drive, 2800 Moody Drive. It was rezoned for a cheese factory 15, 20 years ago. The deal fell apart, and the zoning remains intact as far as I know. But my complaint is that the people that drew up the new plan for the new zoning ignored our property. We've been living there for 36 years, and it shows pictures of other properties, and it tries to insinuate that it's all light commercial in that area. Most of the commercial is north of Fallowfield Road. South of Fallowfield Road, there's only one legal commercial recently done, a storage building, which is quite close to Fallowfield, and an illegal place next door to us. All the places are mentioned except our property, which is the most impacted by the problem, is not mentioned at all, and it's a 1 3/4 acre property with a home and a building. And it's not mentioned, and all the pictures don't show our place. They show all the other commercial places, and as if it's all commercial, and it's not like commercial. It says our property is next to said property, but not as shown like other properties. The surrounding uses are all, has it got it here someplace? It's not light industrial zoning in that area. All the houses and the farms in that area are all residential or existing farms, and some not even being farmed. And the only commercial property near us is the one of the storage buildings. But the way they drew it up and the way it's worded is as if it was all light commercial, and we're not even shown as if we're nothing. And we pay a lot of taxes to live there for that many years. And if we never get any cooperation from the city of Ottawa for anything we ever did, except building permits, we're all right. But any other problem we complained about, nothing ever was done. And next door to me, there's a business running in a residential zone for 15 or 20 years, dumped hundreds of loads of fill behind us, now our well is ruined. And we don't seem to get any action from anybody. And we phoned, and all they tell you is they hire a lawyer. So why should a citizen that pays high taxes have to hire a lawyer to stop somebody from doing something illegal which the city has control of? This has been going on for years. We haven't complained lately because it looks like we can't do anything about it anyway. You put up with it. The bylaw people don't seem to bother these people because they're a big operation, they have a lot of money and lawyers, and they can do what they like, it seems. That's my outlook on it. And a small person can't do anything without getting a permit and being rode to death by the city inspectors, but a big shot outfit can do what they like. I've been around here a long time, so longer than you, so I know what goes on. I could write a book about it. I never really complained before heavily like today. I'm really getting cheesed off with the way everything operates. If you have the money and the big business can do what they like within reason, and they get away with a lot of stuff. And a small person can't do hardly anything without inspectors to no end and permits and red tape to no end. And I hear lots of stories from lots of people, the same complaint I have. So that's my take on that. And we're opposed to this zoning because it doesn't tell you what it's going to be. It's a whole bunch of R's, and nobody can figure it out unless you're a Gatlin lawyer. All the zoning rules, they're very complicated for an ordinary layman. So we don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be a pig farm, or it's going to be a car dealership, or a bulldozer shop. How do we know what it's going to be? It doesn't mention that. It just makes it look like we don't amount to nothing, and it's all commercial, light commercial, and going to be zoned heavy commercial. You wouldn't like it next to you either. None of you would. Especially when you don't know what it's going to be. I'm not against progress, but I'm against things when they're pulled out, implying that the whole place is commercial, and it's not true. The commercial is north of Fallowfield Road. Quarries and all kinds of truck dealerships and rental places, and the only commercial south of Fallowfield is the gas station, been there for umpteen years, unconforming, and an old orchard, which is not being used, and the illegal place in the legal storage building, which I don't know how they got that there, but it's there. It's legal, of course. And south of that, there's nothing but farming and residential properties. Till you get to the railway tracks, which is about a mile down the road. Then you have caught lumber and you have gravel pits, but that's way down the road. They've been there for 50 years, 100 years maybe. So the area we're in is mostly residential. And now they're going to zone, they already zoned the cheese factory property without much complaint. It didn't sound like too bad a thing at the time. But now it's going to go into something a lot worse, and we don't know what it is. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just before you go, I don't know if any of my colleagues have a question for you. No question?
What do you want me to do?
No, I thought they have some question for you, but they don't, so we'll ask. No, they don't have a question for you. They're going to, no, thank you. You can go, sir. Thank you. Our next speaker on the item is Adam Thompson. Adam, would you like to speak? Mr. Thompson, I don't have to remind you, you have 5 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and certainly, yes, I don't imagine I'll be 5 minutes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Novatech is, my name is Adam Thompson, again, with Novatech. We are representing the landowner on this application.
To the microphone.
Sorry.
It seems they have a hard time here.
Is that better? So we've been representing this landowner in advance of this application as well. We've been working with this landowner also through Official Plan Amendment 180. Official Plan Amendment 180 is redesignated this property at 2800 Moody, as well as a number of properties to the north, as rural employment area. Following that process, we are, again, working with the landowner. Our advice was to pursue a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment for this property to essentially implement what the city has designated the lands for in terms of rural employment uses. In doing so, we prepared some background studies as well that looked at groundwater and as well as soils in the area. As a result of that, study, you'll see in the report there are a few uses that have been taken out as deemed to be inappropriate or not feasible because of groundwater. Other than that, there have been no other concerns raised by staff or anybody else in terms of, through the circulation process in terms of the uses. And certainly, being that this is designated as rural employment, we feel that this amendment is simply implementing what the city's intent is for this. The cheese factory zoning that has been on the property is essentially going to be removed as a result. That zoning was put in place, as the resident mentioned, many years ago, but that deal did not go anywhere. So what we're hoping is that with a list of uses established for the property that are appropriate, that the land can be sold and developed appropriately. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any question for the, okay, Mr. Vice Chair?
Is there a specific use intended right now, or is it still to be determined?
Mike's on.
Thank you. To the best of my knowledge, the land, there's a purchase and sale agreement that has been entered into, conditional on the zoning. Believe the intent may be for some sort of rental storage, rental equipment type facility. In the interim, it's likely just going to be a gravel parking lot in the interim. Any use that will be established will have to be subject to the site plan control bylaw as well. So if it triggers site plan control in terms of parking lot area or building size or something like that, the city will have another opportunity to take a look at the actual layout of the site based on an actual development proposal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Any other question to the delegate? No? Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Councillor Moffat.
Thanks. Just have a question for staff on this, whose file this happens. Could you just refresh the committee's memory on OPA, on the official plan amendment 180, and how it impacted the properties in this area south of Fallowfield Road?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the property through OPA 180, the property was redesignated.
Your time's up.
Also, if you can speak closer to the mic, seem to have a problem with
The property was redesignated from agricultural resource area to rural employment area. Excuse me. There was a number of properties
To the north of it too, right?
north,
Right.
along Fallowfield that were involved in OPA 180, and OPA 180 is in full force and effect.
Right. And then also just on the difference between rural heavy industrial versus rural general industrial as to what the real impact is of this zoning change. It's almost a bit of a down zoning to a certain degree.
So through you, Mr. Chair, currently through the rural heavy industrial zone, the use limited on site is to a manufacturing facility for
That's right.
dairy and cheese. That is the only permitted use under the current zoning. So the proposed zoning would expand the uses, but would prohibit sensitive uses on site due to concerns with the water quality.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Murphy. I think we're gonna revisit the sound system in this hall, Caitlin, right? To the clerk. That's okay. I hope by next meeting we have a better sound system. No, okay. All right. So on item number 9 is the item K. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. And now we'll go back to item number 2, which is the budget. I see the screen is on, so I'll turn it back to our staff. It's going to start by Ms. Shelley McDonald.
Good morning. I'll bring this closer.
Yes, please.
So thank you very much, committee, for the opportunity today to present to you the 2019 ARAC budget. I'd like to take a moment to introduce those that are at the table with me to present the budget to you. To my right is Cyril Rogers, Program Manager of Budgeting and Planning. To the far left is Lila Gibbons, Director of Parks, Forestry, and Stormwater Services. To my immediate left is Kim Asiri, Strategist of Infrastructure Services. And Chair, as you mentioned, my name is Shelley McDonald, Manager of Asset Management. I'll turn it over to Mr. Rogers.
Good morning. Thank you, Shelley. So we'll go through a quick presentation and a high-level overview of the budget for this committee. Again, public delegations, questions to staff, and then recommend the budget to council at the end. Next slide. So the operating budget for 2019, there's 2 service areas under this committee. It's the development review process and the rural affairs office. The 2019 expenditure line, this is our gross expenditures that we have for the 2019 budget. We do have some offsets in recoveries, and what those are, those represent costs that we recover from our capital program. And then we have a net budget at the end of 1.8 for our development review process and 1.1 million for our rural affairs, for a total of 2.977 million for the 2019 budget. And this represents an increase of 70,000 over the 2018 budget. Next slide. Essentially, the increase for 2019 is all predicated on the adjustments for our potential contract settlements and increments and benefit changes. In layman terms, this is basically our union agreements that we have and our COLA increases for staff. Next slide. On the capital budget side, we have a 2019 budget of $7.8 million, mainly made up of renewal of city assets and a small component for growth. There will be more details on these detailed line items later in the presentation. This slide represents how we pay for the actual capital program. So the $7.766 million is distributed and funded through 3 main sources, the main source being our reserves. And what this really represents is our cash, so our contribution that we make from our operating budget into the capital reserves to pay for this capital program. We do have some debt at $2.7 million, and then we have a small component of development charge of $272,000. And this is assigned to the growth item, which is a community building or facility in the west. Now I'll pass it over to Shelley to kind of go through some more details in the capital highlights.
Thank you. The proposed budget allocates $7.2 million to renew rural infrastructure, including bridges, guide rails and roads, and $550,000 for the planning and design of a new community building in the rural West End. Through the budgets tabled as part of other committees, there's approximately $43 million being invested to upgrade rural infrastructure. For information, investments in our buildings and parks have been highlighted through the Community and Protective Services budget. A number of projects will be designed and repaired for various facilities in West Carleton, representing a value of $560,000. For Cumberland Ward, approximately $370,000 of works are planned, including a roof replacement for Sarsfield Community Centre. In Ward 20, works are continuing for the Osgood Museum. In addition, we've identified $835,000 for investments for other facilities in the Osgood Ward. Buildings and parks and accessibility improvements are planned for the Rito Goulburn Ward 21 for a total value of $1.2 million. As a hockey mom, I love to see investments in our arenas, and repairs to the Larry Robinson and Richmond Arena and Community Center are also planned in 2019. We recognize how important the roads are in the rural areas. The Rural Road Upgrade Program includes base repairs, reconstruction, strengthening, hard surfacing, and drainage improvements to reinstate the roadways to acceptable conditions. Here are some highlights of the Rural Ward Upgrade Program planned for 2019. So we have $1.1 million of planned investments to upgrade rural roads, including portions of Baldwin Street, McNeely Road, Blackside Road, and Gabbert Road. In addition, there's approximately $1.7 million has been earmarked to upgrade and install new guide rails. These are the highlights of the structures planned for design or construction in 2019. There's a significant investment plan to rehabilitate the Fitzroy Harbor Bridge. Total budget for this is $1.9 million. It says there was monies from 2018. In the 2019 budget, we've identified $1.7 million. Approximately $2.8 million is required for the design or construction to rehabilitate bridges on Anderson, Ritchie Side, Rito, Kilmaris Side, Piperville, Byron Street, and Mitch Owen Roads. Next slide. As referenced previously, a number of programs supporting infrastructure renewal follow under the purview of other committees. Bringing all of these components together, Draft Budget 2019 invests approximately $43 million to support the renewal of rural infrastructure. Specifically, approximately $12 million is identified to replace or repair rural culverts funded through the stormwater rate. From the tax side, approximately $2.8 million will be invested in buildings and parks, including accessibility. Approximately $21 million is planned for resurfacing, road preservation, and sidewalk renewal projects. The City of Ottawa is vast. In the rural areas, roads are key infrastructure assets. The city follows a risk-based approach to ensure that the right investment is made on the right asset at the right time. Regular monitoring of the assets, where possible, provides valuable feedback. Staff connect with the operational groups like road services on a frequent basis and also participate in councillor-led road tours to understand the current state of the road assets. I'd like to highlight some of the key planned projects as identified in the Transportation Committee budget. Resurfacing projects are planned on Fallowfield Road, French Hill Road, River Road, Keatley Road, Mitch Owens, and Dunrobin Road. I'd like to turn it over to Lila Gibbons, please.
Hi, thank you. As Shelley has already mentioned, these capital programs fall under the purview of one of the other committees, particularly Environment Protection, Water, and Waste Management. In 2019, the rural areas will see $2 million towards a communal well, an additional $2 million towards a communal well rehabilitation program, $19.1 million towards the rehabilitation of the sewage pumping stations, and $480,000 towards engineering and construction costs under municipal drainage works. We'll open up to any questions.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you to our staff. And we didn't have anyone registered to speak on our budget, so I'm going to turn it to my colleagues if they have any question to our staff. But I want to begin by thank you all for being here today. Leila, I asked you yesterday because that's item close to our heart in the West after the tornado with the tree plantation and helping the community with clean up some of the still so much trees damage in that area. So maybe you can tell this committee because we have some rural residents here.
Okay. So like I mentioned yesterday, we are currently working on programs to help continue to support those that were affected by the tornado events. particularly in your ward. You've got some larger properties that have significant tree damage in those lots. We did have to slow down and stop our operations earlier this past fall because of the early snowfall. So we do have some additional funds that are available that we will be moving into the spring with more cleanup operations and hopefully put together a stump grinding program that we can help offer to the private residences. We will have a thorough program in place. We're working on it right now with some other colleagues, as well as some private enterprises like Tree Canada, who has recently, well, I think as of October, November of last year, put a sponsorship program in place where they will be able to assist private landowners with replanting on the private properties. We're also looking at some other organizations who expressed interest in assisting with some of the most affected areas. So we will be coming back with some more information, and particularly Forest Ontario, in terms of helping to provide funding in order to develop forestry plans for these larger areas, larger properties.
Okay. My colleague, Councillor Giroux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the presentation. I have a quick question concerning the Wild Parsnip program that we're going to start again on it. I think it's in, when your program will start in May?
Yes, we are. We will be kicking it into gear again, usually about the 3rd or 4th week of May, as the plant has sufficient leaf coverage in order to be effective in the spraying program.
Are we like trying to be aggressive and making sure, because what happened, we've seen in areas, especially in the rural areas, and now it's impacting our pathways and our multi-use pathways, and it's actually spreading to private property. Even if we don't deal with the issues, especially on the side of the road, in the ditches, but soon enough it's gonna be a problem for our farmer and our private landowner that their own property. Are we gonna be aggressive and trying to expand that program? You have enough funding, and do you have all the resources you need for that?
We currently, through the chair, we currently have $198,000 that's designated towards the Wild Parsnip Management Program. We are still targeting the highly infested areas. Some of our areas that we have been spraying for the past few years, we are seeing remarkable improvement, so we're looking to move to more of a maintenance program for some of those areas. We are seeing the problem not only on city property, but there is considerable amount of private properties where who are also infested with wild parsnip that encroaches onto city properties as well. So we are going to be working closely with our colleagues in bylaw services to see if we can have more of an education program and an information package that we can provide to those landowners so that they can help support the program on their side. We can help support it on the city's right-of-way in order to try and combat the plant. We are looking, I think, at another 600 to 800 kilometers of roadsides that we will be spraying this year, and close to 130 parkland locations.
Thank you. Just because what happened is, it's what I'm noticing is we're not really targeting, we're not really aggressively going behind the wild parsnip, and that's why I think it's traveling from community to community. Like, I know it started in the West End, and now you're almost in Cumberland. And if we're not going to be able to find the tools and be able to aggressive shut it down, it's kind of like all over really band-aiding it right now. I really think we should look at the solution so we'll be able to actually aggressive dealing with the wild parsnip so we can get rid of it, because otherwise it's going to take over the land. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Giroux. Vice Chair Gower.
A question about one of the items in the future year capital budget around a facility in the rural west, community facility, and I'm just wondering if you had a bit more information about what that facility is and location, that sort of thing.
So through the chair, unfortunately no one at the table is with Parks and Rec in order to be able to speak to that, but we'll circle back with you with that.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Okay, Shelley, perhaps Ms. McDonald, sorry. In our budget consultation, we heard about the deficit in the road resurface, repair, rehabilitation, and we talked about this in the past. So last year's budget saw increase of 8.5 million, and I do believe now you have a plan in place, and with the additional funding you're receiving in that department, now we're going to be able to tackle the shortfall in 6 years versus 10 years, because in the past, the way we're going, it's going to take us 10 years to basically play catch-up. But now, with the additional funding, can you talk a little bit about this? Because I think this is very important, or maybe Bryce, I'm not sure if one of you would like to address that. The increased additional funding to the road infrastructure and rehabilitation.
Yeah, through the chair. So in this budget, as committed to the mayor and the directions, there is an additional $9.8 million being contributed to the infrastructure in 2019. And that will continue, or the plan is to continue that investment for 2020 forward. And what that means is there'll be 9.8 this year. Next year that goes to 18, because it's going to be another incremental 9.8, and so on and so forth. And what that does is it reduces the infrastructure gap from a 10-year period down to a 5-year period. So we are aggressively recognizing the shortfall in that gap, and that's the plan and strategy in place to close that gap over the next 5 years.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to continue working with you guys. This is, we don't have to tell you how important that is, the rural road or rural infrastructure and the bridge prepared, because we have a list of bridges going to be, and I believe, Shelley, your shop is, you and your colleague, Karina, you're going to be spending about $12 million on culvert replacement in 2019 in the rural area. You're on, your mic's on.
It's very sensitive. Through the chair, yes, you're right. So through the Environmental Protection, Water and Waste Management Committee, that is a mouthful, 12 million has been identified in that budget for rural culvert investments.
Okay. So that's all our question. So we have no one speaking about the budget, right? No. So no one addresses. So on the okay, Mr. Vice Chair, you do have a motion as a roadmap, so we'll turn it to you.
I move that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend that Council, sitting as Committee of the Whole, approve the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee 2019 Draft Operating and Capital Budget as follows. Number 1, Development Review Process, Rural Operating Resource Requirement, page 5. Number 2, Rural Affairs Office User Fees, page 7. Operating Resource Requirement, page 6. And 3, the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Capital Program, page 8, with individual projects listed, pages 16 to 25.
Okay. On the item carry. Okay. Thank you. With that, so I want to thank staff for your presentation, and so there is no in-camera items. Open mic, no one registered to date for open mic. Anyone here to wish to speak to us on open mic? And none. Notice of motion for next meeting? None. Inquiries? No, we didn't receive any inquiries. Adjournment. The next meeting will be Thursday, March 7, 2019, at this building here, and hopefully by then we'll have a better sound system for the audience. So with that, on adjournment, okay? Thank you.